everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Tonight on America Decides, constitutional tension. A federal judge is holding a late-day hearing in Washington on the Trump administration's use of the 18th Century Alien Enemies Act. Despite being blocked by the courts, the White House appeared to have defied a ruling and used the act to deport alleged Venezuelan gang members, sending them to El Salvador. Now, that act has only been used 3 times during the War of 1812 and both world wars. Also, ceasefire talks. President Trump is preparing to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin by phone tomorrow. There's a push for a ceasefire deal with Ukraine. I'm sure you've heard about that. And negotiators are working to end that war. They say in the context of their conversations, there have already been discussions about, quote, dividing up certain assets, unquote. President takes center stage. Well, sort of. President Trump meets with the Kennedy Center's Board of Trustees. Mr. Trump's takeover of that storied arts institution has seen a sizable leadership shakeup. Many have been purged. And it's also led to many shows at the Kennedy Center being canceled. I want to start tonight with Jake Rosen and Camila Montoyo Galvez. Jake is with me here in Washington. Camilo is in New York. Camila, let me start with you. What do we know about the status of these deportations and the legal authority being asserted by the Trump administration to carry them out?
Well, Major, on Friday, the president invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. The White House published the order officially on Saturday, and it allows the government to essentially summarily arrest, detain, and deport any Venezuelan national who is in the U.S. without citizenship or green card status, older than 13, who is alleged to be a member of the Tren de Aragua transnational criminal gang. And that order allows officials to summarily deport any of the people who meet this criteria without any of the due process protections in U.S. law. And that is what happened over the weekend. 137 Venezuelans, allegedly gang members and part of this Tren de Aragua gang, criminal gang rather, from Venezuela, were deported to El Salvador, which has agreed to detain and house some of these deportees. There were other migrants who were also deported under different authorities to that Central American country. But of course, the legal question now is whether the White House and the administration overall complied with the court ruling that barred deportations under this 18th century statute, and whether the White House made a decision to actively defy that order and not turn around planes that the judge said should be returning to the U.S. in light of his order.
And Camila, on this question of criterion, did the administration or has it produced evidence for any of these deported Venezuelans to prove or underscore or highlight their direct connections to this transnational organization?
No, and the answer to your question is that they don't really have to, Major, because under this statute, a simple finding from officials that somebody is allegedly a member of this gang that the administration is arguing is orchestrating and staging an invasion or an incursion into the U.S. is enough to justify their summary arrest, detention, and deportation. There is no criminal charge or immigration finding that is needed to carry out an arrest and deportation under the statute.
Jake, catch us up. What's going on today in court?
Well, that's right. The court hearing has started, but within the last hour, the Department of Justice moved to dismiss this hearing and vacate it, claiming that the judge has no jurisdiction in this case and that they have abided by the order. And as you just heard Camilo lay out, that flights have left, but they also argue that the judge's order, which was verbally spoken on Saturday evening, that the planes had to turn around because it was not put officially into writing, that the government believes that it is still following that order. However, in numerous cases in the last couple of months since Donald Trump has taken office, judges have sided verbally with the Trump administration, and the Trump administration has seen that as fact of law in a court. And so we've really seen a double standard there. As a result of the judge declining to vacate that hearing, the Department of Justice and Trump administration moved in an appeal to remove this judge, Judge James Boasberg, from this case, saying that he overreached his judicial authority and had proceeded improperly on Saturday evening by not letting the government officially file court documents in the case and by blocking what they see a national security imperative by the president.
Jake, I want to play you some sound from the president about this from Sunday aboard Air Force One. Let's listen.
They invaded our country. So this isn't, in that sense, this is war. In many respects, it's more dangerous than war because, you know, in war they have uniforms. You know who you're shooting at. You know who you're going after. These are people that came out. They're walking our streets.
The reason the president talked about war is the 3 previous instances I mentioned in which this Enemy Aliens Act has been invoked, Congress declared war. There is no declaration of war. The administration is rhetorically asserting these Venezuelans came here to this country, and that was, in effect, an act of war. Do I have that right, Jake?
Yes, that's correct. And on Saturday evening, a Department of Justice attorney argued that because the Venezuelan government at times cooperates with the Tren de Agua gang, that they are basically a part terrorist state, and that the Venezuelan government should be considered basically an opponent of the United States because of their cooperation with this gang, basically saying that by Donald Trump's Article 2 powers, which has been really the case for a number of these executive actions, that Donald Trump can assert that the Venezuelan government is cooperating with this gang, and by thus using this act that really, as you said, has only been used 3 times, and that he has the power to do it further, and that this judge has no way of stopping him because he has Article 2 power that allegedly, they believe, assert this claim.
Jake Rosen, Camila Montoya Galvez, thank you for getting us started. Appreciate it.